US and Canada. Officials say at least 34 people have died across the US, with the worst hit area being the city of Buffalo in New York. We have a report.
4 fatalities occurred in Canada when a bus rolled over on an icy road near the town of Merritt in the western province of British Columbia. The scope of the winter storm has been unprecedented, stretching from Canada as far south as the Rio Grande. Forecasters say the storm will ease off in the next few days, but they advised against traveling unless it is very essential. The storm has wreaked havoc for days, but power has been steadily restored. Earlier blackout winter storm, which occurs when atmospheric pressure plummets, causing heavy snow and winds, has disrupted travel across the United States. More than 55 million Americans remained under wind chill alerts on Christmas Day. Reports say temperatures fell so low in South Florida that iguanas froze and fell from trees. In New York City, Buffalo is the worst hit.
And to our state police, who've been involved in over 500 rescues, literally helping everybody to getting elderly people to hospitals, helping a gentleman who only had 4% left on his mechanical heart. They got him the help he needed, and delivering a baby. Tragically, there has been a loss of life. The numbers continue to increase. We have confirmed now 12 storm-related deaths, and unfortunately we know that there'll be more numbers that'll be being unveiled as soon as they're actually confirmed. But there is substantial, significant, and devastating loss of life as a result of this winter storm.
Unfortunately, we do believe, based on reports we're getting from the field, we are going to get a number, hopefully not a significant number, but a number of additionally confirmed deaths in the next 6 hours because of bodies that have been found but have not yet been transported to hospital for identification and confirmation of death.
Storm-related deaths were also reported in Vermont, Ohio, Missouri, Wisconsin, Kansas, and Colorado.
And joining me now from Texas for a closer look at the U.S. weather situation is an international affairs analyst, Boye Akinokun. Good to have you join us. Canada, but what's the latest you can tell us about its impact in the U.S.?
Yes, good morning once again. The impact was very severe, has been very severe over the last couple of days. The entire U.S. was covered by the winter storm, but things are picking up at the moment. The temperature is improving all over, but it's been a blast across the U.S. over the last couple of days.
Mm. And what about where you are in Texas? Are you also affected as well?
Yes, but that was for Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day. It was kind of unprecedented, the kind of weather that we saw, but things are picking up at the moment.
Mm. And I was, in terms of picking up at the moment, I was going to ask you if the worst of the storm is behind you. What sort of update are you getting? Are things looking better, or are there indications that it is going to get worse?
Yeah, things are getting better. The temperature is improving. It's picking up. I believe we're in the 50s this morning. So the temperature is picking up. It's rising up, and a lot of people lost power on Christmas Day. For Texas, the numbers were into the 100,000s, but it has gone down. Power has been restored for a lot of people, and people are able to move around now. So yeah, it's picked up now.
What sort of emergency response are victims receiving from the government, whether state or federal?
So for Texas, we didn't have a lot of emergency situations, but other parts of the U.S., especially in the northern parts, New York, Buffalo, New York, Ohio, and across the Midwestern states, there were a lot of issues that came up all over the place. People did an emergency, not able to get it. So yeah, it was really, yeah.
And what about travel and travel advisories? Initially, a lot of flights were cancelled. Is that still the same situation? And what sort of travel advisory are officials issuing?
A lot of flights were cancelled. There were about 1,700 flights that had been cancelled as of yesterday evening. but the services are beginning to get back to normal. But of course, because there's a backlog, it's affecting what has happened all over the Christmas period. But flights are beginning to normalize right now.
Children and the elderly, and then also, do you also have like makeshift shelters for people who are already stranded, maybe not in their homes?
Say that again. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was asking about the impact on children and the elderly, and if there are makeshift shelters for people like that.
Yes, for people that in the worst hit cities, the shelter was provided for the vulnerable people. The problem was people had to get there before the storm hit. So the people that got there before the storm hit were lucky and were safe. A lot of people that did not hit the local advices on time, they were trying to get in later. Where most of the people that got into trouble when they lost power, they couldn't move because the snow was a lot and they couldn't drive through it. So those were the people that got into a lot of trouble. But shelter was provided for people that were vulnerable and were able to make it on.
And has power been restored now? Because we understand about 1.5 million people didn't have access to power. And in
this morning's report, the number of people that still hadn't gotten their power back, it was no more than about 100,000. So it has come down from the 1.something million to about 100,000. So yeah, it's getting back gradually.
This has been linked to climate change because we know that this is, because there were a lot of prediction. I heard that there was going to be a hard winter for Europe, but I'm not sure if America was one of those countries that was listed. But how much of this is being linked to climate change?
I believe, generally speaking, looking at it, it's as a result of the climate change. As of November, the temperatures were still high compared to what we normally get. So this is the impact of what we're seeing right now. It's been hot at unusual times, and I believe that is hitting the North Pole. The icebergs are breaking, and that's what we are seeing right now. The winter is just starting, and we can almost expect that there's still going to be another round of this last before winter runs out. So yeah, it's an unprecedented. For example, Christmas in Texas for last year the temperature was warm, but now what we saw this year was entirely different. So we can see that it's an impact of the climate change.
And how is the White House reacting to this? Because I know that President Biden has always been very, he talks so much about climate change and how much America has to be on the forefront in terms of dealing with the impact. How is the White House responding to this?
Yes, I mean, the responsibility of most of this falls on the local and state authorities, but the White House issued a statement saying they are watching and will send help to the affected areas as much as they could. But the real work is with the state and local authorities. We should expect more from the White House on this, I'm sure, as time goes on.
And I know the power has been restored, but I just wanted to ask you, because I spoke with another analyst who lives in the US. I think that was over the weekend when it started. And I just also want to ask you the same question, because we know that right now the energy prices are high because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. And there is fear that if this kind of condition continues and energy prices are high and people are not able to keep warm in the winter, that perhaps there will be pressure on governments to ensure that they put pressure on the Ukrainian president to end the war. Do you think that that might likely be the case in the US if this kind of temperature continues?
The impact is not right now. Gas prices in the US are at very low levels because the government has acted and released oil from its strategic reserve. So right now, the US is not feeling the impact as much as I believe Europe is right now. So the effect is not on the US right now, is what I mean by that, because gas prices are very low because government has acted to ensure that there's some kind of reprieve on US citizens. But the prices in Europe at the moment are high, and of course, I'm sure Europeans have begun to kind of grumble and wonder when all of this will end and things will come back to normal for them.
But let me ask you about this because people, Americans and just generally the world, when people were looking forward to really celebrating this Christmas. Remember in 2020 and 2021, it was a bit difficult because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm sure Americans were looking to travel. How are people reacting to this? Being kept home, and this is supposed to be the first time they're able to spend time with their family during the Christmas season.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's been disappointing for a lot of people that had travel plans to meet up with family. This is one of the holidays that people meet up with their families and move around. So it's been kind of disappointing for a lot of people, but you know, it's they're natural causes, and we all had to accept that, okay, this is something beyond our control, and just move with it. But it's been kind of disappointing for a lot of people that had travel plans to meet up with family.
Thank you so much for the update there, International Affairs Analyst Boye Akinokun. Thank you for your update.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're watching The World Now. We'll be back in a moment with more stories. Stay with us.